offer some comments on this subject and perhaps provide some perspective. I did prepare some remarks, but I think it's important for me to say at the outset that Shaker is a community that welcomes immigrants. We are a community that is strongly opposed to discrimination. We respect people regardless of race, religion, nationality. We want immigrants to feel comfortable here. We want to do what we can to make sure that immigrants do feel comfortable here. And our police act accordingly. Now that's very important because I understand all the anxiety that's been created based on what's been happening at the national level. But that isn't the situation we're in Shaker Heights. And we want to keep it that way. We want to keep the kind of community we have. And while we want to be responsive to the concerns here, we want to find a way of doing that that doesn't do damage to the community, and I will explain about that. I do want to thank everybody who has spoken on this subject. I think I speak for everybody up here when I say that your words have had a profound impact on us. Many of us are closely connected to the whole immigrant experience. My grandparents were Jewish immigrants from Eastern Europe. Had America not taken them in, they would have been, in all likelihood, killed in the Holocaust. And I was close to them as a youngster. I feel very close to the immigrant experience myself. But more importantly, were comments made by some of the people who've been urging us to pass a resolution to the effect that we're all connected. And discrimination against Muslims, discrimination against Hispanics, discrimination against Hindus is discrimination against all of us. And we understand that in Shaker Heights, and we recognize that, and we believe that. We each have a story. Many of the people here have a story. And we each have personal feelings about what's going on in the country, and in many instances, very strong personal feelings. And each of us, as individuals, not only have the right to express our personal feelings, but we have an obligation to do so, and that should be done in many ways through our contributions, through protests in the street, through writing letters, through voting, through political organization. Public officials, however, and that's all of us up here, have the burden of acting not just on personal feelings, but based on what is in the best interest of the community and its future. We took an oath of office that obligates us to do that. In other words, we have to act based on our knowledge of the broader needs and interests of the community, and as someone I respected said, not just with our hearts, but also with our heads. The resolution originally presented by a group of citizens, and the one being considered tonight by some council members, I believe, both contain directions for our police department as to what they should do and what they shouldn't do. Under our charter, the task actually belongs to the mayor. Can you put the slide up? Next slide. Sorry. Hold this up. Technology. Okay. So the mayor is in charge, under in charge, the chief executive officer of the city and responsible for supervising all of the departments and is the chief conservatory of the peace within the city, and you see that all laws and ordinances are enforced. So the mayor is responsible for conserving the peace in the city. Of course, the mayor does so in close collaboration with the police chief. Because of this, I have felt a personal responsibility to find a path that works as well as possible in responding to the concerns, and I will address that. It is unusual for the council to be directing the police as is proposed in both of these resolutions, and I just want to make sure that we're aware of that. Insofar as our community is concerned, we actually are not an island. We actually are quite dependent on our relationships with other parts of the government. And that is true both at the federal and at the state level and at the county level. We try very hard to work together cooperatively, and we try to do so apolitically. And for the most part, we have been able to do that, and that is important to our community. As a matter of fact, we feel we have the right to insist on that, because we are dealing right now with an administration at the state level, which is a red administration, an administration at the federal level, which is a red administration. And if you looked at the voting records in this community, you'd see that we are a blue community. So we want to make sure that we're treated fairly and apolitically and on the same basis as everybody else. And the problem with both of the resolutions that have been proposed, however well-intentioned they are, and they are certainly well-intentioned, is that in this extremely charged climate, with the internet and the distribution on the internet and the way everything has been being treated in terms of this subject, they are apt to be perceived with the council trying to tell the police what to do or not to do about immigration as inflammatory and highly political. I have looked in trying to determine a path at what's being done in other communities. Now, I certainly agree that we shouldn't necessarily do what other communities do, but we do have a pretty clear record of what's happened in Cuyahoga County. And unless we can find a clear reason to distinguish ourselves, we ought to take it into account. And the fact is that 4 communities have considered this issue: Cleveland, Cleveland Heights, Beechwood, and South Euclid. I know the mayors in all of those communities, Not one of them has chosen to go down this path of issuing statements to the police. And I do find it difficult to distinguish ourselves from these other communities because these are thoughtful people in each community. These are thoughtful mayors. I don't think we can say that we are so diverse that we are different from all the others. It would be very hard to argue that, for instance, that we're more diverse than Cleveland Heights. I talked about the police before. The police act in accordance with the values of our community. Police Chief Jeffrey DeMuth understands the values of this community better than any chief in any other community in this area would. With respect to the issue of immigration and what the police are doing with respect to immigration, I'm in my 10th year as mayor, and I have had umpteen million conversations with our police chiefs, both Chief DeMuth and Chief Lee, who preceded him. And we have talked about all kinds of things, and they have kept me fully informed as to what's going on in the department. The first time the issue of immigration came up was after this resolution was introduced. So the police are not out there doing the kinds of things that you're concerned about, or the kinds of things that are being covered by the orders, the resolutions that are being presented and that are prohibitions, putting prohibitions on the police for things that they're not doing. It's noteworthy that Chief DeMuth approached a group of residents after the first presentation of a request for a resolution on this subject and explained what the police are doing. And the resident, and after that, one of the residents who was an active proponent of the resolution said, look, we don't have a problem with the Shaker police. We're trying to make a statement. And I think what this is an effort to make a political statement. And I certainly understand it. And certainly respect it.
No, sir. It is
No.
not a
Okay, all
political
right, well,
statement.
give me a chance to speak.
Nor was that said by
Okay.
any member of our group. But
Well,
you will have your space.
that's what I understand. I do know that one of the members of the group said, and this was recorded, that what we want you to do is to denounce the federal government and its immigration policies. And this was recorded, so I believe there is a strong element here of making a political statement. Now, we've had a history in our community since 2003, and I want to just mention what happened in 2003. At that point, there was a resolution introduced that the Shaker Council go on record against the United States going to war in Iraq. And that was an even busier evening than this one. People were sitting on the floor. There was a group that was very strongly supportive of that resolution, and it actually passed. I was on the council at that time, and I voted against it. Not because I wanted to go to war in Iraq, I didn't, but because I really felt it wasn't appropriate for council to take an issue